This is a very spiritual event that takes place every year in the southern part of Crete. There are what we would call ghosts or something. Drosulites, the mysterious invisible warriors of Crete that appear at the end of May before the sun rises. Drosulites are a metaphysical phenomenon with the legendary warriors. Every year from the end of May to the beginning of June, just before the sun rises, these legendary warriors appear in the place of Time Campos in the province of Sfakia, an army of undead warriors in shining armor marches out to sea above the Franco Castello. It's a Frank castle, and they say that it's Hadzi Dalianis and his soldiers who defended the castle from the Ottomans, the Turks, that is. This was about, 250 years ago. And the people say that this phenomenon with the shadows of the fighters, the Drosulites, because they appear from about 8 minutes in the cool of the dawn. The mythology, the legend says probably, but those who have seen it advise that if you are in the plains there and not in the highlands, you can see it. In the area of Franco Castello, it's a Venetian castle in the province of Sfakia, Crete. One of the most important pages of Cretan history was written there. The protagonist was a fighter from Delvinaki, Epirus, Hadzi Zalianis, an Italian-educated man who engaged in the tobacco trade in Trieste and built up considerable fortune. Tradition says that during one of his trips to the Holy Land, he was baptized as a monk in the Jordan River, and from there the name Hadzi Michalis arose. Anyone that went to be baptized in the Jordan River had the prefix of Hadz on his name. He did a Hajj, meaning a pilgrimage. So Hadzi Yanis Dalianis participates in the revolution of the War of Independence of Greece from Turkey, the Battle of Phaliros. In 1816, he became a member of the group of men and with his own money organized the first cavalry corps in Greece and participated in the revolution against Turkey for independence of Greece. In March 1826, he chartered 3 ships with 800 volunteers bound for Lebanon to help Emir Bashir against the Ottomans. This would serve the revolution since the Sultan would send troops to face a new front and reduce his military strength in the Greek area. The distraction failed. Hadzi Michalis had to return to Greece and in cooperation with Faviero freed Karisto, and this was followed by missions to the Peloponnese, where Ibrahim was, and from where he went to central Greece and fought alongside Karaiskakis. The bravery of Hadzi Michalis and his men is also highlighted by Makrianis in his memoirs. June 26, 1827, Richard Courts, commander-in-chief of the Greek land forces, appoints him as the leader of the irregular cavalry of Greece. And in the end of 1827, he was invited to Crete to take over the leadership of the revolutionaries there. The revolution in Crete started from Sfakia, where this Venetian castle was. The Ottomans, seeing that they could not suppress it, asked for the help of Muhammad Ali of Egypt. At the same time, diplomatic efforts were made to raise the issue of Crete's inclusion in the new Greek state. And he landed at Suda with a large army managing to take most of Crete. Dalianis goes down to Crete and organizes a fighting force consisting of 100 horsemen and around 500 infantry. It's said that on the voyage to Crete he met with English warspite that was bringing Capodistrias to Nafplion. January 5th, Dalianis arrived in Gravvusa. He initially chose it as his mount and then moved to Sfakia. The Albanian Pasha of Kydonia camped at the foundations of an area there, warning Sfakians not to interfere. The Sfakians did not pay attention to his threats. On May 8, a cavalry and infantry division under Hatzimichalis set up an ambush and killed the Turkish division from Rethymno that was coming to reinforce Mustafa. Enraged, Mustafa set an ultimatum to Hatzimichalis. The order was simple and clear. In 10 days he had to leave the island. Hatzimichalis replied that he had come down to Crete to fight with the help of God to win. Mustafa tried to tempt the Cretans with privileges if they would remain uninvolved in this struggle against the foreigner. Capture of the Franco Castello, the Venetian castle. Hatzimichalis occupies this Venetian castle, builds 3 bastions and waits for Mustafa. The Sfakians pressure him to leave, around 100 of his men there, and he and the rest to go to another area called Atiasa, which was high on the mountain, and from there to strike when Mustafa attacks the fortress. There was no experience of cavalry fighting on the plain, and they would not be able to help. But he did not raise a conversation and wanted the cavalry, so he stayed in Franco Castello, this Venetian castle, with 500 men and 100 horsemen. The battle, May 13, Mustafa led 8,000 foot soldiers. You can imagine 8,000 soldiers against the 500. 400 horsemen, and with 6 cannons started from Vrisia for Franco Castello, and as soon as he reached there, he has visual contact with the castle. The attack begins at dawn, May 17. The battle was unequal. Hatzimichalis' soldiers who were on the bastion quickly ran out of ammunition, so the Ottomans captured and killed all of them. Hatzimichalis comes out of the fortress with his horsemen so that the defenders who were on the bastions can enter the fortress. At the gate of the castle, the great battle was fought. The gate was blocked by the dead. Hatzimichalis with some soldiers are looking for another access point. The Ottomans surround him. He fights bravely until the last moment, and at one point his sword broke and his horse was killed. The Ottomans condemned him, and that was the end of the battle. A few days later, the nun Magdalene found the unburied corpse and head and buried them in the chapel of Saint Charalambos. They said that he should have listened to Sfakians, and the battle was fought in the mountains. Perhaps he overestimated his powers. The Sfakians say that he was a Kuzul and did not marry anyone. We told him to go to Madaris, the mountains, but he sat in Castelli, and not only that, he wanted to go out to the plains to make war and took his lads around his neck. The castle surrenders. The siege of the castle continued for 7 days. Mustafa besieged it, but he too was far from the supply bases. The defenders held until the end. So on March 27, he came to an agreement with the defenders of the castle to surround it. The end of the battle finds 800 Turks dead and over 350 on the Greek side. Mustafa destroyed the towers of the castle towards the land and made his way back. And about 1,000 Sfakians moved by Hatzimichalis' sacrifice wanted to take revenge. The castle was deserted and the sand covered the unbridled buried corpses. Tradition says that if the body is buried, the soul does not rest. Many years have passed since, no, the tradition says if the body is buried, the soul does not rest. I would say that the opposite. If the body is not buried, the soul does not rest. Many years have passed since then, and one morning in May, some shepherds saw above the monastery of St. Haralambos an army of human shadows dressed in black, footmen and horsemen with weapons and swords advancing towards the sea. The locals call this phenomenon drosulites because they only appeared at the dew of dawn. Someone then remembered the story of Hatziyanis Dalianis and his soldiers. Maybe it was their souls, they say. In 1980, a detachment of Turks who saw the phenomenon got scared and took a fighting position. The same thing happened during the German occupation, when the men of Germany attacked a detachment, mistook the shadows for insurgents and opened fire with their machine guns, thinking there was a landing. Attempts to explain the phenomenon. Some spoke of a phenomenon of superior mirage by Libyan soldiers. Even if it did, the distance is more than 40 miles and the uniforms are completely different. Some others are convinced that these are ghosts. General Christos Zalianis, great-grandson of Hadzi Michalis, in 1928 addressed a society for psychical research where they characterize a phenomenon as metaphysical. Some spoke of refraction of light, something like a rainbow. However, in history, we have similar examples. Of ancient Greece, Herodotus mentions that in the naval battle of Salamis, after being preceded by a great light, there appeared ghosts and idols of armed men. Something similar was the phenomenon of the Angels of Mons in World War I, when during the Battle of Mons, Belgium, human shadows appeared above the soldiers. Similar phenomena have also occurred in Scotland, Silesia, and even in Marathon, where the Battle of Marathon took place. Every September, the residents of Marathon, even today, hear fightings and clashing of swords and shoutings of warriors, and some people even see them. But here, in this case of the Venetian castle of Franco Castello, if you find yourself in Sfakia and it's May, take a walk in Sfakia and you may find out. You may actually see these shadows of the history of Greece. This I've translated for you from a Greek article. I have also asked, when I first heard of this a few years ago, I asked one of our priests here, what happens? Why does this take place in areas where fighting took place, battles took place? He said it's because of the fact that when the human body dies suddenly and viciously, the soul can't accept the fact that it died like that. And it suffers. And that's how ghosts sometimes appear and reappear, especially in the days of the battles taking place and on the days of their death. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.